In this video, we're going to be going through a practice that helps you to expand your experience for deep healing. So what do I mean by expanding your experience? Within the work of Somatic Experiencing, we're looking at our experience as humans, typically through 4 different ways of experience, 4 different realms of experience. So the first being meaning making sense of the world with our mind. Now, this is a very dominant way of experiencing things within our culture. So we tend to be pretty mind heavy, wanting to make meaning of all the things. Although this is a beautiful way of experiencing things, one of the things that I do a lot in practice is getting people to expand outside of just making sense of. Another realm of experience would be through sensation. So that's within the body. Feeling sensation in the body is a way of experiencing our life and our world. A third way is through emotion. So we also experience our world through emoting, through having emotions around things. And a fourth way is through imagery. So having a visual image of an experience that we're having. So daydreaming would be a good example of this, or even dreaming. So one of the strategies that we have is to expand someone's realms of experiencing something. So as I mentioned, in our culture, we tend to be very meaning oriented, very wanting to make sense of things with our minds. But we can have that experience, but then we can also experience it through emotion, experience it through sensation, and experience it through imagery. When we do that, it has a very healing effect. One of the reasons for this is because when our nervous system is dysregulated, we've experienced lots of stress or we have significant trauma, our experience, how we experience the world, narrows. And this happens for good reasons, often to protect ourselves and survive under certain situations we may have endured in the past. And so it's a coping mechanism, if you will. We close in our experience, and we've all probably experienced this, where when we're really stressed, it's difficult to see the big picture. We often see things through one lens. So a strategy to help push us into a more regulated nervous system state is to expand that way of experiencing the world. So in this video, I just want to outline a practice where we can do this. And perhaps through this practice, you can see which of those realms of experiencing are more difficult for you. Many times when I'm meeting with someone, I will see 1 or 2 dominant ways of experiencing the world. Again, and culturally, very often meaning and intellect is a very dominant way of experiencing. Not always, but in many cases. And then you might see somebody who is a bit of a daydreamer and imagery comes to them really easily. Or you might know people in your life that are always swinging between emotions and expressing those. So emotion might be a dominant way of experiencing the world. So in any case, as you go through this exercise, try to notice which ways of experiencing are more difficult for you. And those avenues are actually, there's a lot of benefit to putting more attention to that, because there can be this really beautiful nervous system regulating and healing effect to expanding your experiences. So let's get into the practice. Typically with this, I would suggest closing the eyes if that feels comfortable to you. So with your eyes closed, being very curious. So we're not trying to change what we notice in our experience, but just being very curious. Noticing the sensations in your body. And bringing to mind the most obvious sensation. Very often this will be something uncomfortable, but it might not be. Once you have identified that sensation, we're just going to notice it. And you can name it in your head, like, I'm noticing some tension in my neck. Again, being very curious, just being open to it and giving it permission to be there. You're noticing the thing and giving it a name. And perhaps naming the quality of the sensation. Is it warm, tingly? Is it tight, burning? Just noticing that. And allowing it to be there. And as you're noticing it, see if you can assign an emotion to it. This may have come effortlessly, like you right away you know this is creating irritation or relaxation or anger or sadness. And if it doesn't come easily, just relaxing into it and just seeing if an emotion comes up. Yet again, we're just being very curious. We're not trying to change what's there, even if it feels uncomfortable. And not just allowing, but actually giving it permission to exist. A sensation and an emotion. As you do this, it might change and move and disappear or get bigger. And I encourage you to allow those things and just follow it. And if it disappears, see what is there in its absence. And as you do this, the next step is to, in your mind's eye, if the sensation and emotion could be a vision or an image, what comes to mind? Yet again, this may have come effortlessly to you, and it may not. If it doesn't, just allow your imagination to be there. Sometimes it helps just to ask that sensation and emotion what it wants to do. What it wants to do, and I'll add in an imaginary world where there's no consequences. What would that emotion do, that sensation do if the sky was the limit? And then finally, we can start to ask, and likely this answer has been trying to poke its head in the whole time, but we will now very intentionally ask our minds what meaning we would assign to this. What meaning do we make of this sensation and emotion and imagery that comes up? Often this comes as a story. It might be a memory. Like, oh, I'm experiencing this because of something that's happened in the past. Or I'm experiencing this, I think, because of the stress that's currently in my life. Whatever the meaning is, it's just interesting. We're just staying curious and allowing our minds to make a story around it, make meaning out of it. And then just allowing yourself to arrive back in the space that you're in, opening your eyes, and just notice your environment. Notice if anything feels different in how you might be perceiving your environment. Sometimes we feel more relaxed, or we notice things more. Sometimes colors are a little more vibrant. And sometimes nothing happens. But just taking a moment to see what feels different, what feels the same. Now, this is a great practice, and we entered it through the realm of experiencing of sensation. But you can enter it from any realm of experiencing. So let's say you have maybe an intrusive thought or a thought that keeps going in your mind. You can enter it that way. Coming in with a thought, checking to see if there's an emotion associated with it, where it lives, a sensation in the body, and then the imagery. Now here's a trick for you. If you find this practice difficult, and it's difficult to stay out of your mind, a good order of operations would be the thought, imagery, sensation, and emotion. Often that order will be easier to access if you had some difficulty. But just to remind you again, notice which of those realms of experiencing was more difficult for you to access, sometimes impossible. Like sometimes people can't notice an emotion. They're cut off from that realm of experiencing. And so that's just a beautiful signpost saying, hey, this might be an area for you to focus to help you expand your way of experiencing the world, experiencing a little bit more healing, and helping to regulate your nervous system so that we can experience less stress. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please share it and like it and send me any messages. And I'll see you next time.